Thoughts. I'm Chris.
I'm Adam.
I'm Topher.
Today we're talking about the most common types of microphones, how they work, and what to use them for. All right, so we're jumping right in. What do we have for gear news?
I thought it was interesting since we're doing mic week. I saw Universal Audio just started making mics. I saw
Nice.
looks like a SM7B ish kind of mic.
Okay.
The SD one.
Is it around the same price point?
It actually, surprisingly, yeah. It seemed like it. I don't know if it was the same or actually maybe a little cheaper.
Okay.
But I think it's more or less just a large broadcast type dynamic mic. But they made it so that if you have a Universal Audio interface, they have like special channel strip presets and stuff. So
cool.
I don't have one, but probably I'm sure it sounds good though.
Yeah. I mean, it's Universal Audio, probably. Yeah.
I think thing that I was excited about this week.
This is what everybody's been excited about. Yeah, the Boss RE2.
Yes, a Space Echo, and they put it in a box that's small enough to put on a normal pedal board.
Can you show me those?
Maybe.
So the funny thing is, it wasn't officially released, but somebody leaked it, so now everyone's talking about it.
Oh, okay.
Now it's officially.
Yeah, I think
released,
Boss.
yes.
I think Boss released it then because somebody had already talked about it.
We got it now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I saw it pop up.
Oh, this is the one that you were like, why is this not a...
Why didn't this already exist?
Yeah, because they had for a long time. They did have a pedal version, but it was the wide like 2 pedals button version like that Boss made for a while, like the DD20 size.
Yeah, which I never was a big fan of that.
I mean, it's nice to have the tap and everything in there, but I'd rather have a small one with just an input for a tap.
Yeah,
Because it's such a big box.
Yeah. Because half the time you ain't probably going to use... Like, it's probably just going to be used ambient anyway, right? Like, yeah. No, I'm interested to hear what the new one will sound like.
Yeah, me too. Hopefully it's retains some of the same, like, tape character kind of sound for being a digital.
Bassy reverb sounds.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah.
So I guess we're on to our riff challenge.
Yeah. So, sign us in, I guess.
All right. So this week's riff challenge... though many believe Hank Williams died at the age of 29, in reality, he's been living in a bungalow next door to Elvis in a remote part of Florida in the Everglades, where the two of them regularly play chicken on their matching airboats. One day, upon running low on whiskey, Hank, in disguise, of course, heads to town, only to bump into a crew who are shooting scenes for a new Power Rangers reboot.
Oh my god, yes.
The show producer happens to recognize him, still needing a theme song. He tells Hank that he will reveal to the public that he's still amongst the living unless he agrees to ghostwrite and record a new theme for the Power Rangers show.
Oh my god.
All right.
I can't.
Flip it.
We already had like somebody come back from the dead, and we had time travel. I needed a way to
Nobody
do
nobody called.
it. You call it.
All right. Tails. It's you.
Heads?
Mm-hmm.
All right. There we go. I feel like it came out a little bit more like a Western than Hank. That's all right.
Fair enough. I think you got the wrong show. When the eyes of a ranger are upon you.
I don't know if you noticed the slide part, but that was actually the melody from the original Power Rangers.
Was it? Okay.
Go Power Rangers.
Okay.
No, I know
Go Power Rangers.
Oh, Jesus.
I noticed. I'm reporting. I don't know who I'm going to report you to. Bro.
It's okay because they did not use a jaw harp in their original.
If his is getting reported, mine's definitely getting reported. That's it. That's all I got.
That's definitely Adam.
Did you play the intro guitar part, but just on a clean tone? And
I was
play
like,
it, and then just,
like, yeah, I'm just gonna put the Telecaster on the bridge and just.
was that in time to the backtrack?
Mostly in time. I was like, all right, close enough.
Oh, Hank.
That was good. Good deal. All right, we're moving on from that travesty. Let's get right into the main topic.
Okay.
Topher's like, why am I here?
Gave me an excuse to play my dobro.
That was something.
That was the slide, yeah.
All right, microphones, I think, is what we're talking about this week.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever used a microphone before?
I don't know what a microphone. What are they for?
I'm not too certain. Huh?
Please elaborate.
Oh yeah. So microphone, that's a thing you talk into, I suppose.
Oh, that. Oh,
We
like
have a lot of
this is this.
Yeah, maybe. More like that.
This
There you
here.
go. Uh-huh.
This is a microphone. Ah!
You just wanted to have that ready to go for this
I
episode,
did, yeah.
didn't you? Okay. Yeah.
This is a child's toy. Which is why I enjoy playing with it.
All right, moving on. Okay, so do we want to get in and talk
Yes.
about what are we going to talk about, Adam? You're the expert here.
I don't know if I'm an expert, but I think that but I do like microphones. It's I think they're probably my second thing behind guitar pedals that are addictive, because they're unique and they it is.
Few here, it looks like.
Yeah, there's I got a handful of them out. So I don't know, microphones. It is this everything that you hear right on a recording or live. I mean, this is where it's taking that signal and
Fair enough.
turning it into your recording or amplifying for a live sound. So it does change the character of everything. I think it pays to kind of just explain a microphone. I mean, what it does, regardless of what type of mic, as we'll discuss them. It's a transducer. It is taking the sound, the waves of sound, right, the actual mechanical energy there, and converting it into an electrical signal, so you can pass it through your cable and into whatever you're plugging into. So they all do the same thing, just in different ways. I like to talk dynamic mics first because I think that's the thing that everyone's going to be the most familiar with.
Yeah, fair
Right.
enough. And that's what that's what we're all using right now is a dynamic microphone.
Yep.
Yep.
Most common ones in the world. 57, 58. There's there's a ton of different ones out there, but I think that for guitarists, right? Like if you're an electric guitar player, guitar amp, there's lots of options, but that's like standard.
We should spell it out. So Shure SM is who makes them. Shure SM57
And a Shure SM58.
which are almost identical except for the capsule.
This is a blue Encore 100i. It's very similar to a SM57. There's a lot of brands that make this kind of mic. They're very common. Even like these aren't the best sounding dynamics in the world, but you can throw it off a bridge and then plug it in and it works. That's why a 58 is so famous and popular, because you can bash them to hell and still use them. But you can get, and they're not that expensive really for what they are.
No, $100 at most, I think. Usually.
Yeah. Sometimes if you get a good deal on it, it's a lot less than that. I think
Guitar
They're
Center
used
during
cheap.
Guitar Center Black Friday, I think they'll sell you 2 for $100 or something like that. Like it's pretty cheap.
So like any dynamic mic, they all kind of work on the same principle. There's a moving coil in it. Their coil's moving between fixed magnets, which is it's an electromagnetic circuit. So I'm not a super geek on the science side of it, but that's generally how it functions.
So yeah.
You can get more nerdy if you want.
I mean, that's pretty much it, right? Like, basically, when you cause like any sort of diaphragm to move, like a sort of electromagnet, meaning there's some sort of power with a coil, like powering a coil, and some sort of diaphragm that causes the electricity to change.
Mhm.
That's really all it is at the end of the day. I would hope that's mostly...
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about. Well, we're gonna just kind of briefly describe different types of mics, and then we'll talk kind of more about use of them and what we all want to, the fun parts.
Yeah.
How you can get weird with them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Exactly. So the next kind of thing a lot of people are more familiar with are going to be condenser mics, especially if you're when I was growing up, like there were a few. There was a few reasonably priced condenser mics back then. Now there's lots of them. It used to be expensive studio tools, but now you can run a home studio and have condenser mics. That one he's holding up, that's a warm audio. It's basically a 414, which is an AKG. 414 is an AKG mic. It's like one of the most standard condensers that you can use on any source. That warm makes budget versions of a lot of people's mics. That's a large diaphragm. I've got a couple. That blue one over there is also a large or medium diaphragm, I guess. These guys here are both small diaphragms. One thing you'll notice, a lot of times they call them pencil condensers. That's because they're little stick-shaped ones, right? This is a Mic Tech. This is a Rode M5. If you're just getting into stuff and you need some small condensers, these Rodes, really cheap. You can buy a set of them.
Why would I buy a large condenser over a small condenser or vice versa?
Well, it depends on the sound source you're picking up, right? Generally, like if I'm say a vocalist, this is not necessarily going to give the truest representation of my voice. Yeah. It's going to be pretty narrow. Large, literally the capsule size is what we're talking. Like a capsule in a large condenser is a bigger capsule. You're picking up a wider range of frequencies.
And when we say capsule, we're literally talking about the size of the top of it. So like just the thing that connects into the electronics of the microphone.
Yeah, we could probably actually take a photo through the screen on that one later and show you, because you can see that you can visibly see the capsule. A little easier to see than on these tiny little ones. Although I think this one I've got other capsules for upstairs.
Oh, there you go.
Because they actually literally the capsule comes off, so that's much smaller than what's inside of one of those. So condensers work differently too. They actually have there's a moving diaphragm that acts as like one plate in a fixed charge parallel plate capacitor.
Those were some words right there.
Basically, this is the diaphragm moves, the distance between those plates vary, and that changes capacitance. That's really a lot of words.
Changes capacitance. So in other words, the amount of electricity moving between those two plates fluctuates.
Yes.
It's literally just the difference is what the audio is.
And that's actually what's transmitting the audio and telling the mic what it says.
Yeah. Which is also why to get a charge in a lot of these condensers, we probably have to supply power to them.
We do, yes.
Yep.
So if people ever talk about phantom power, they are not talking about a ghost in your mixer. It is literally when you turn on phantom power, it's actually sending a small amount of voltage back through the XLR cable, which is powering your phantom powered mic. Yep. Most of the time, with a few exceptions, dynamic mics don't require it.
And will electrocute you if you...
There are some that do require it. There are active dynamic mics, but not a ton of them. But condensers almost always take phantom power. There's a few, if you're talking about different type of mics that require that have a battery that you put in them, especially if it's for film sets and stuff like that. But we'll get to that point. I think if you're just getting into music, you're just getting into recording stuff at home, having even just a couple mics is super helpful. If you have a low budget, find a 57 or something similar, and then get a cheap large diaphragm condenser mic, and you can get a ton of good sounds between those two things.
That'll pretty much get you all sorts of guitar and vocal, that'll cover your
absolutely
most of probably what you're going to be doing.
So I currently only have one, But this here is the next type of mic we're talking about. This is a ribbon mic. This one here happens to be a Shure as well. It's a KSM 313. Yeah, I'll have to look it up. It's a KSM. It's a KSM series Shure mic. Ribbon mics are totally different animal.
Yeah. Well, I've heard you talk about them. I've never actually known what makes it.
Yeah. So ribbon mics were invented in the 1920s. They became really popular in the 30s with RCA. You see those big old ribbon style mics. So ribbons are weird mics. There's basically it's literally, when you say ribbon, it's like a metal ribbon inside of it that's suspended under tension. The ribbon itself, it vibrates in response to the acoustic in front of it, so your waves, and it's actually the velocity of the air particles which it's transmitting, so it is actually picking up velocity unlike the other mics, and that's what generates a small voltage in response to that, turns it into electrical energy. They have a different characteristic sound. If you set up, that's a relatively good ribbon mic, but even a budget one, most ribbons have a darker tone. They roll off some of those highs that like a big condenser sometimes picks up everything. Ribbons are something you can go to for if you have a singer who's really who's a little harsh. I love putting a ribbon on that kind of vocal. It kind of mellows it out without having to over EQ something.
I used to use ribbons on grand pianos a lot. You could put them on the high end so that way it cuts out, especially if you get like the Baldwins that have that real high end, it rolls that off a little bit. But the problem with ribbon mics, and I shouldn't say it's a problem, it's just like a characteristic of the ribbon mics is that they are more fragile because you have a very, very thin piece of, we say metal, but it's just it's paper, more than paper thin. Yeah. So it can break easy.
Think of almost like foil.
Yeah.
Like the tin stuff, like the stuff for Christmas trees or whatever.
Yeah. Tinsel, imagine tinsel stretched really, really tight. Yeah.
It has to be thin because otherwise it's not sensitive enough to pick up all that.
And in fact, because of that, they also say don't put those on certain brass instruments. So you shouldn't mic a trumpet or a saxophone or something where it's going to have large amounts of air hitting it. Yeah. Now
there are some ribbon mics. The one thing they are also really good on are guitar amps. Royer R121 is just a super famous sound on a guitar amp, and you see them paired up next to a dynamic mic all the time.
They are so paired with the 57 that I believe Royer sells it, a double clip microphone clip that it holds the Royer here and then it holds the 57 like this, and so you just screw it on, put it right next to your amp, and it's good to go. Yeah.
No, this is the right now the only ribbon I have. I got this one because honestly this is made for handling higher SPLs too. Okay. You can literally record from either side. The one side is made for higher SPLs than the other side. So if you want to record something really cranked, you can spin it around and do that.
Nice.
And it sounds pretty incredible on a guitar amp. So it's worth it. If you can get a decent ribbon mic, it's definitely a good thing to have around, especially if you like to record your actual amp.
Yeah. They're almost always going to be twice the price of what you're paying for those dynamics. So
there are some really reasonable ones out there. If you Royer actually has something called the R10, which is it's a imported I think it's imported, but it's very similar characteristics to an R101, except they're $300 or $400 instead of over $1,000.
Oh yeah, because the R121, if I remember right, it's $1,200.
Yeah, they're not cheap at all.
Yeah, not even a little bit. The Royer R10 looks like you can pick it up at Sweetwater right now for $499. Yeah, so that's not bad.
So $500 new, probably 3 to 4 used. So
yeah,
so pretty reasonable for a really good sounding mic. There's also there's a brand out there and I've used them in a studio before several times. Cascade. They make really budget friendly mics. They make the Fathead is a super popular ribbon mic, and they sell them in singles and pairs, but they work. Pairs of them are awesome because you can use them as drum overheads as well, and they can take away some of the really harshness you might get in cymbals if you're using condenser mics or something like that.
Yeah, those small diaphragm condensers I used to record as the drum overheads, and they would get like real washy real quick. You had to EQ the crap out of them.
Yep, I used to use these little budget Rode M5s on overheads all the time.
Yep.
And they sound good. But I actually I run I didn't bring it down, but it's AKG 214, and I just run that mono over the top.
Oh, nice.
And so it's a little easier to manage. But
yeah, fair enough.
So you can't talk about mics without talking about polar patterns, and some of this stuff's going to be rehashed things. You could, if you guys are already mic familiar, then you can skip over some of this if you want. But I think that it's for somebody who's new to mics, it's super important to understand this because you can ruin a session or ruin something really fast if you use the wrong polar pattern.
Yeah.
I have no idea what's going on, so yeah, let's talk about this.
So let's do a quick example real quick. So Adam already said one side of this is higher SPL level than the other, but a lot of people walking right up to that microphone might think you're gonna be singing into it like that. That's not what you want because it's not gonna pick anything up. Well, I'd imagine this one probably won't pick anything up.
Not much, yeah.
So when we're talking about polar patterns, we're really just talking about where the mic is pointed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're either so mics can be directional, but they don't have to be. The first polar pattern we can talk about omni, and that literally means it's just picking up from every direction. So. I don't think any of the ones I have down here right now are omni. Nope. I have an Aventone. I should have brought that down, a CV12. Some of them you can adjust that too. So they're good if you're trying to pick up the sense of a room, like an omni will pick up every direction. It's also great for if you want to do some old time kind of recordings and get everybody circled around a mic. You don't have to worry about people not getting picked up.
They're often used for if you're doing like large orchestra, large ensemble, works very well for that. Usually you'll have your spot mics right up on the principal instruments, and then you can have an omni center stage above the conductor. That works pretty well. And if you can also use your stereo pair, but that is one use I've seen quite a bit.
Yeah, I've used personally for me, I know because I've never recorded an orchestra, but it'd be cool. I'd love to.
Yeah.
For me,
it's super easy, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You probably can't it's not like you're miking 42 or 50 whatever instruments.
No, you're literally dropping a stereo pair and then maybe spotting first violin. If you're in a brass ensemble, you usually don't even worry about it. You just put your stereo pair up and grab the sound.
Yep.
Occasionally have some hanging mics over top, and it's not much.
Yeah. For me, Omni, I've used it successfully in quite a few sessions where we were doing group or gang vocals and just having people in a circle around it, and then you don't have to think about spot miking everything.
Yep.
The next type we'll talk about, and that's common in this one. This one it's a little more receptive to one side, but it's still a figure eight. But they call it a figure eight pattern, and if you think about it, the figure eight like this, where it dips.
I'm gonna put it up on the screen here.
Oh, that's a good. Then I have to draw it with my finger.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're looking at the top view of a microphone, let's just see this, Topher. You've probably seen these before, and a lot of us who've messed around with some mics see these fairly regularly.
I've seen these.
Yeah, so this is the top view. This is looking down where your mics are pointing at. So omnidirectional is all the way around you. Figure eight is going to be in front and behind. So like I said, if we were going to record both of us singing, I could put it like this. You could sing in this side, I could sing in this side. And
like did it sideways, it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
And probably wouldn't be as
and
great.
It picks up like most of these. It should be said like, it's your voice depending on the room you're in. Everything there's reflections, so there's very few mics that aren't going to pick up something from other directions, but primarily like where they're picking up from is specific spots on the mic.
One of the things that should be mentioned with dynamic mics especially is there's a rule in audio where when you double the distance you have the volume, right? So if I'm at 100 dB an inch from the mic, if I go to 2 inches back, it's going to be 50 dB in theory, and so on and so forth. And that's how a lot of these operate. So
Yeah.
something.
I think I've used figure 8 for you before. I can't remember. A good thing about it, like in a smaller space sometimes, and a lot of old studios when they didn't have a lot of mics to use, a lot of mics were that pattern back then. You can turn the mic like this and say Topher and I are both singing, and the drums are over there. You'll get some bleed, but you're still at least the primary sound sources are the ones to the side, to the front and back. So thinking about that when you're recording or doing live work, even just knowing who's aimed at it and who you don't want aimed at it.
Yeah, I've seen like the ribbons are generally, most of them I'd say are probably figure 8, aren't they?
Typically,
Yeah.
Unless you're lucky and you get a stereo ribbon and then you get like a bloom line, but we haven't talked about.
Oh yeah. That might be a little too deep, but that's okay. We can keep going.
So then probably the most common type of pattern we talked about 2 patterns. The most common is the third one we'll talk about, which is cardioid. God damn it. Shut up. It's cardamom. They come in pods.
Yeah.
Cartilage. That comes in bones. So cardioid pattern, it is, yes, it's basically mushroom shaped. It's picking up primarily from the front, the source that is aimed at it, and that is the idea. It's to help. You use them for live uses a lot because it rejects a lot of the sound behind to the sides. It means feedback from monitors is lessened. If you're trying to get a source from a specific direction, it's a good use.
You can think of cardioid kind of like you'd think of directional. I mean, there's side, like it picks up some from the side, but it depends on the capsule.
But less than say like on the air figure 8. And then you have variations of that called supercardioid and hypercardioid, and which are both they're similar. They're just it takes the side back area and just keeps narrowing it down to less and less, so they're more and more directional. Such
a weird distinction because like where does a cardioid and a hypercardioid where does that actually cross over? Like
I think some of that is just I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe
marketing.
I might be wrong, but I don't know. I don't know that there's like a exact spot where you can't call it this if you cut off here. But
hypercardioid is at 32 degrees versus. No, I'm making that up.
I was like, shit, I didn't know.
Oh wait.
Oh, well, maybe it is.
Oh, apparently it is. If this is right. I don't know. Anyway,
we'll have to do a little research on that. That's kind of interesting. Another type of capsule. We don't have one here because I don't do film work generally. But shotgun mics, and they literally think about this guy, but if he's just long and same shape, and they are made to be super directional. They use them on film sets. When you see some dude holding a boom like this and the mic's over, it's because you're trying to pick up the people on set speaking, and you're trying to not pick up anything else.
And we're talking like the offset on it is heavy. So like here is fully loud, and then just like moving it sideways, like it'll cut you out pretty hard, pretty quick.
It is interesting. I don't. For most people don't have one if they're in a studio or they do music stuff because it's probably the least useful in some of those situations. But I will say one common, the most common used one, NPR's Tiny Desk.
Oh, yeah.
They use one on all their shows.
They're also starting to become much more popular amongst YouTubers.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you're starting to see more and more use them, so that way they can be like, especially when you're interviewing people.
Yeah.
And they can keep their background noise, like the air conditioner kicking on.
Yeah, you got the heat kick on. You don't have to worry about it.
Yep, exactly.
You can. I have heard of some people using them for instruments on occasion, just aim for very specific aims and stuff. But I think for the most part, it's you see it a lot in film.
Yeah. What do you guys use for like live and recording? Like you two personally? I know you've got a pretty decent condenser that you like to use.
Yeah, there's a Lawton Audio L220.
Okay.
Large diaphragm.
Gotcha.
I like that one. I mean, it's the only one I have.
Yeah, fair enough.
It was super affordable, but yeah, I remember making that jump between using your standard that Audio Technica that I had forever. Mm-hmm. Jumping from that to an actual large diaphragm, like world of difference between the clarity. And
fair enough.
I love it.
And what do you generally use for your recording? Or do you have a preference?
It varies a lot, but I can tell you like this is the go-to vocal mic. I mean, you don't have to plug it in because it doesn't work, but
yeah.
But it has this nice reverb. We probably won't be able to pick it up here.
That's the mic for the divas and the people.
You can also like do effects.
If someone's giving you a hard time in the studio, that's what they get.
Yeah, like you're like, oh, you don't like the AKG? Here, you get the Echo mic. I like that it has a switch on the back that's not a switch. It's just molded plastic.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
But yeah, so do you like personally when you're recording yourself, not necessarily recording everybody like anybody else, but do you have one go-to?
I have a couple go-tos.
Okay.
I would say like if it is a song that is kind of open and there's not like a thick amount of texture going on underneath, and I want the vocals to be big.
Yep.
I used an Aventone CV12.
Okay.
Which is a very budget version of say like a C12 from which is like one of the most famous condensers in history. You can't buy one for. I mean, if I sold my van multiple times, I could buy one.
Sell your house.
Yeah, but I mean that's like a vintage, super high end one. But the CV12 it's a good mic. I've heard rumors that it was used on like the early Taylor Swift albums too.
Interesting. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. It sounds big, and it also has a power supply that you can change the polar pattern on it.
Okay. Huh. Wow.
It's variable, so you can actually have it part way between patterns.
Okay.
So I use that a lot on vocals like that. And then if it's a song where I don't want it, where it's more rock and roll and I need a more direct sound, then I use a
AKG Sennheiser. Sure.
It's like a SM7B, but it's not.
I'm with you.
So basically I use like an SM7B for that stuff.
What about for guitar? Like I know you've been using direct with the simplifier, but when you do record guitar,
for the riff challenge stuff, I'm mostly going indirect with things, but for actual recording amps and stuff, I tend to go with a couple. I like to use two mics a lot of times. I put a ribbon on it, and then I usually dial that in with sometimes a 57, but what I really love is like the 906 up there. That's a super friendly, the flat guy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so that's you don't need a stand. You can if you're good at hanging things, you can just hang it in front of the amp.
Mm-hmm. And these are used live a lot. Mm-hmm. I know, like people like them because you don't have to, like I said, you don't have to worry about the stand. Just right over.
They're good on. From what I have not actually recorded it, but apparently they're good on brass and stuff like that too.
Interesting.
Now, for acoustic though, we know we don't plug into pedals or anything, or we want to use microphones. We can't use pedals on acoustic.
You cannot. According to the internet that I heard this week, only idiots plug in to pedals with their acoustic. Like, why would you ever even consider that?
I microphone.
I typically what I would do I just take a 58 like this, and set it against like the bridge of the guitar, and then I use duct tape to adhere it. Like I wrap it around about 7-8 times, so it's really tight.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is that because? And I heard that duct tape is made by the company Piezo. Is that right? Is that? Got him. Oh man. So no, for real. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I record acoustic, though, I do run. It's not the greatest, but I have run from my acoustic pickup into acoustic fly rig, the Tech 21 fly rig, and then into my interface. It's not the best solution, but it sounds all right. It does the trick. Yeah.
I actually do plug in to record acoustic, but what I tend to do is, and not always, but a lot of times I like to take and do a direct in, and then I'll take a large diaphragm condenser and put it up near the 12th fret somewhere in there, and aim a little bit back at the sound hole to get a little bit of body. But I love stereo, like getting a stereo input from a acoustic, because you can pan it out a little bit, make it sound really full, or you can put them right together and just mix it so you have something to give it the body, and then you can use the pickup to get that crisp.
Yeah. Especially if you're doing picked parts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. What do you guys use live? Do you guys like bring out any condensers or anything?
Whatever I got.
Yeah, whatever you got.
I don't with live vocals and stuff. You're not gonna get the clarity of like being, if you're gonna be picky about your mics.
Do you guys bother miking your guitar amps anymore? Is that by venue?
Oh well, that's definitely by venue. And for guitar amps, it's definitely the Sennheiser, the flat.
The 906.
Yeah, you said you got a couple of that series. Yeah, those are great. Those are great for live shows. I just not having to have as many stands on stage is super helpful.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna pick one of these up later this year because
Yep, I'm a little lazy about that stuff. So so that works. That works well. 57 also works great. I mean,
we've been on and off past few shows we've done together. Yeah, we've mostly had 57s unless we went ampless.
Yeah, I get a little less picky about about that live. I at some point I wouldn't mind getting one like really nice like live vocal mic. Yeah. Either like just a better dynamic or like a live handheld condenser.
Yeah.
Like
I've always just wanted a Shure 55, the Sinatra mic.
Oh yeah, just because they look cool.
Yeah, just like they're not that expensive. Like they're not cheap, but they're not like crazy. They're $200.
Yeah. It's expensive to me.
You'd have to
compared to I mean, if you imagine like these 58s are $100.
It's expensive to me.
Yeah, fair enough. Your Lawton's probably double that though, isn't it?
It's expensive.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
If I'm spending money, it's expensive.
I think that the 55, you'll have to double check me, but I'm pretty sure it's the same capsule.
I think you're probably right.
I think
you're absolutely right.
They look super cool, but I think it's actually similar capsule.
Yeah, I just want it because it looks cool. Like this is like they're quality. Like it's not like I'm buying trash because it looks cool. Like it's still Shure.
And then you have mics like this.
Yes.
Which are speakers that are also microphones.
Nice.
What's the difference between a speaker and a microphone?
You wire one backwards and one forwards.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is not going to quite pick up those crystal highs real well because it's a 10-inch microphone. But that is a special. So that is for anybody who's interested, because it's really, you can buy these kind of things they're not cheap, or you can just find a 10-inch speaker, 8-inch speaker somewhere in there. That one's actually from an old NS10 monitor, so it's like this. Nice. It's like the standard. But if it's just an okay speaker, it'll do what you want it to. They call it a sub-kick mic. It's literally wired backwards. You have to put a pad on it of some kind, so you're not just clipping the heck out of your pre. But you can make one of those for dirt cheap. Just wire it backwards and set it up right in front of your kick drum, like very close to it, and pair it up with an actual kick drum mic or another mic, and you get the attack from your regular mic, and then you get the woof, like that.
Interesting.
Okay. That's like a old studio trick.
I remember when you first showed me that. I was like, oh, this makes a world of difference.
Should we talk about like specific mics to use for things, or we?
I mean, we kind of touched on it already, didn't we?
I think we did.
Yeah. It's just, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Not that one. Yeah. What you got there, Adam?
Got a 1980s telephone handset with an XLR connector in the back.
I hear you can just do this, and it's the same as getting like a U87.
It's a replica of U87 actually.
Yep.
And most people don't realize how tiny the
capsule is inside of it. Yeah. I don't know why you'd pay $6 for that when you can just do this.
So you can of course use an EQ and cut everything but the mid-range out and get that tiny telephone booth sound, or you don't have to turn on an EQ. You can just get an old telephone and sing through it. If you like microphones, having fun toys around like that can actually be pretty inspiring in the studio. So, where normally I might sing into like that blue there or an Aventone or maybe a ribbon for a special sauce flavor. Sometimes you can do really cool things with stupid toys in the studio, especially when you're mixing them with other parts.
You've also run some of your vocals through pedals and stuff, haven't you? I believe there's one you've done with a rat pedal.
I did actually. I ran a vocal through. Actually, that was. Yeah, I didn't have this yet when I did the vocal, so I did use a filter on it to get that effect, and then I ran it through a rat.
Nice.
Yeah. You play with things, man. Gears. Everybody will tell you that, oh, you're doing this kind of recording, man. You gotta have a 57 on the amp, or you gotta have a specific mic to put on your toms or something like that. But sometimes you need to do something else.
Experiment and see what happens.
There are no rules, only guidelines.
No matter what people on Facebook try to tell you.
Exactly.
Topher's gonna throw a shit fit.
Keep him out shit.
Oh man,
that dude was just.
If anybody out there has a functional crystal microphone, I would love to have one.
Crystal microphone. I don't know what this is.
What is
it? What do you mean crystal? Is it like actual crystal, or is it like
so really early microphones, some of them were made out of salt crystals.
Oh, weird.
They're conductive. The thing is, the type of crystal that it is, temperature and humidity make them deteriorate over time, so they stop working.
I can imagine that.
But if you see some vintage mics that look really cool, where you're like, man, that looks like a piece from a vintage car, with all the crazy fins and stuff. A lot of times those are old crystal mics, so they might not work, but they the ones that do, they have a really interesting sound.
Weird. Yeah, I have never seen that before or heard of that.
I wonder how hard it would be to make
make your own. Go buy some.
Yeah, you can
salt.
you can actually make the crystals.
Can you really? I was joking about it
in the oven.
I'm sure you could. Yeah.
I haven't done it, but I think it'd be interesting experiment.
We gotta do this. I want to do this. I want to play with this.
You gotta be careful with Aaron this episode talking about making crystals in the kitchen. They're for a microphone.
I've made worse in my bathtub.
Really
it's fine.
about this microphone.
God.
What are we gonna bake in the kitchen?
Oh man, interesting.
Or carbon button microphones.
Carbon button. What is a carbon button?
Like really old telephones. A lot of times they used a carbon button.
Carbon button microphone. Interesting.
Another interesting piece of history.
Yep. I've seen these.
Mm-hmm. Yes, there's a lot of things out there that people don't realize exist, but they all lend their own unique flavors.
Sweet. Well, speaking of weird stuff, I mentioned it in the chat. We were talking about binaural miking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, for those of you who don't know, and this is me being the nerd I am, this was what my senior thesis for college was on. but effectively there's a type of miking that it's to try to replicate human hearing. And usually you're supposed to use some sort of non-colored condenser microphones that kind of operate in the same way that the human ear does. And then you can go about generally, like, you can buy some false ears or false heads that look like a person's head, put them inside of the put the condensers inside of these heads and try to replicate what people actually hear. So my senior thesis actually included me going to buy dental mold and making molds of my ears. Yeah, and then we put a set of Earthworks TH. What's the long ones?
Oh, with the ones that look
TH10, the pencil condensers.
Yep. They're the one. It's the ones they use for doing for shooting a room or whatever.
Yep. That's exactly what they were.
Yep.
So I ran a couple of right here.
An M30.
Yep. So I had a stereo pair of these, and by I mean the school had a stereo pair of these that I actually inserted into the ears, and we we went around and we put the false head, basically the ears, in the middle of the stage, and then me and a buddy went around and played white noise, pink noise, and all that in different tones all the way up and down to see how it affected the how the sound changed.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it was an odd project, but yeah, the whole binaural thing to me is fascinating.
Careful note, kids, don't stick actual pencils in your ears. We're talking about microphones.
Yes.
And they're fake ears.
And if you ever have to make cast molds of your ears, make sure you plug your eardrums.
Oh, yeah. That seems...
Yeah, you have to do it with plastic, or it can be bad because that dental mold turns into
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's fascinating. I had no when you said binaural, I did not realize that we were talking about trying to replicate the human hearing.
Yep. So
that's super interesting.
They do this for a lot of I've heard them used for testing out microphones in different spaces. They've also used it to here they're showing them in nature documentaries where they're trying to see how people are just how sounds work on a 3D spectrum. It's pretty interesting. What else do we got?
There's a few brands now that are making what do they call it? I can't remember the term. You can it's literally as capsules to capture the entire room. I know Zoom makes a small one that's got 4 or 6 capsules all aimed around. It's like a surround sound mic, basically.
I've heard of those. I generally hear people using to capture impulses for reverb, reverb impulses.
Oh, that makes sense.
So you put it in the center of the room, and then you go out and generally people will use a generator to do pink noise or white noise. You can do it from your phone, or I've heard starter pistols people have used because that's just a quick impulse. So they'll do it that way and capture the sound of a room into those multi.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. It's yeah.
Question. Piezo pickup that's a microphone.
So a piezo pickup is something. A lot of times they call it a contact microphone. It's not exactly a microphone. What it means is if I held a piezo disc up in front of you and had it plugged in and connected for an XLR 1/4 inch and it was ready to go. Okay. If I held it up in front of you and you sang, it wouldn't pick that up. Okay. If you held it against your cheek or your throat and you were singing, it would pick that up.
Okay. You can think of it like those things that people may lose their voice boxes.
Oh,
That's technically a piezo because it picks up the vibration. Yep.
Yeah, it's a very specific type. It's funny, but a smoke alarm, that's actually the beeping, the pitch you hear from it traditionally, that's actually piezo. It's just wired to be a speaker.
Oh wow, did not know that.
Huh.
Never would have known.
Yeah. So, but yeah, you can totally
So if I have junk
fire alarms,
fire alarms around my house, I can make some piezos.
Yeah, but piezos are one of the most common acoustic guitar pickups. Typically, they are either inside of it under the discs or a piece that is under the bridge plate inside, or sometimes they are also like a stick-on kind of thing, which looks like a little round disc or a thing with a sticky back. But yeah, it picks up the vibrations of your guitar right through the top of it.
You have is your Martin acoustic electric?
Yes.
Okay, so on yours, what it is they actually like, it looks like braided cable, but have you seen it?
Underneath on my Fender, I think.
Okay, yeah, because it literally like it's like sticks in underneath the saddle of your bridge, and then it's held in by tension.
The piezos are not. It doesn't give you a natural sound of the acoustic, but it does give you a way to amplify it without it being as microphonic as in some cases. Although they can feedback. But having a small condenser mic inside of it too can also feedback.
My big issue with it was with placing it under the saddle like that. Like if you have a heavy right hand and you like try to do any like slappy stuff, it makes it pop because it's like causing it to like tap out basically.
Yep. Yeah, I had the one that was in that Epiphone arch top. That one came with a piezo that was built into the floating bridge, and it was literally like in that right under the saddle.
Yep.
And it would cut in and out, and I really didn't like it, so I took it out.
Yeah, no, you gotta pick up on the top.
now it's got an actual humbucker electromagnetic pickup, and then it's also got an LR Bags microphone inside the body.
Oh, nice.
So it's still got an acoustic pickup. It's just not a piezo.
Interesting. Cool.
Yeah. Anyways,
what else?
Do we have anything else?
Wait, I do have one question.
Yeah, what's up?
So these things on on my
switches.
condenser.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what these really do.
So a lot of condenser mics have switches on them, and depending on the mic, it might do one of various things. Like on that's a warm audio version of a AKG 414. It's there. I think it's just called WA14. Yes, but that one has two switches. I believe is the one
one's polar pattern. Yeah,
and the other one's a
pad.
Okay. Yeah. So usually the things you'll see on switches, a pad is one of them, and all that is it's padding the input. So like if you have a louder source and you don't want to overdrive it, or if it's a really subtle quiet source, it might have a way to boost the input.
Yep. Okay. So it's the difference between like having you sing into it versus like having a trumpet player like blasting straight at this. Yeah,
I think typically you see it where they have it like set to 0, and then it might have like a -10 or like a +10 or -20, or it's gonna somewhere in there. And then on that one, that's got polar patterns, so you can do like omni, figure 8, or cardioid, I think.
Yeah, cardioid, figure 8.
And then some other ones like that blue mic there, that one has switches on it too. And sometimes what you see is a like a shelf on it, like where you can cut the bass or cut the treble. Typically cut the bass is what you see the most common. Yeah.
All right, there, good.
Cool. All right, so that's all we have on microphones today. Don't forget to check us out on Patreon. Also, we still have merch at our Teespring store. Check us out on your subscribe. What else am I missing?
Buy a t-shirt.
Hey guys, Chris here. We forgot to set up an artist for this week, a featured artist. That said, we are definitely still looking for artists to feature. If you would like to be featured on an episode, hit us up. You can go to either woodwirewatts.com or email us directly at woodwirewatts@gmail.com. To be featured, all you have to do is send us a song and send us a short video of you guys talking about the song. Just something quick, saying maybe like what equipment you used. Obviously we're a gear-centric channel, so if you could talk a little bit about the guitar stuff, that'd be great. If not, we can work something out. Yeah, just reach out, hit us up, find us on all the social medias, all that stuff. Thanks, guys.
Just if you can give us reviews on stuff like on
YouTube,
Apple, Apple, Spotify, any engagement you can kind of help give us will help us reach a broader audience that needs to hear this stuff. And wants to.
Yeah, if you guys see, even if you guys like half an episode or like you like certain parts of it, if you subscribe and then tell us what you did like, or what you'd like to see on a future episode, that helps us out a lot. It gives us ideas of what we want to do.
It's not for our own vanity. Like we're not getting paid for any of this stuff. We're not monetized at all. We just want people to be able to learn from what we're giving out.
We just like music and gear and bands, and we
it's fun
enjoy talking about it.
Yeah,
so
it's fun talking to people and meeting folks.
Special
And
algorithms that help hold things back.
Yep.
We're
also pretty close to being able to have our YouTube URL. We need 20 more subscribers before we can get our YouTube URL, so that'll be cool.
Could be any one of you.
Yeah. Yes. That sounded threatening.
Now this sounds threatening.
All right. With all that said, thanks for joining us on Woodwire Watts. Until next time, tune up.
Crank the volume.
let it rip.